Hey guys, how's it going today? Will here with Saberoon Design Tutorial Blog with episode 3 of the Photoshop Desk Reference series. In this episode, we're going to discuss duplication and repetition. One of the greatest things about creating art digitally is the ability to create perfect copies of both design elements and entire designs. Previously, copying was much more complex and in some cases may not have been copying at all, but rather a masterful reproduction. Today, we make copies that are indistinguishable from the original, and we can do it with incredible speed and ease. As designers, though, we use repetition and duplication for much more than just making simple copies of our work. We use it as a sort of automation method to enhance our workflow and enrich our designs. As you may have already guessed, Photoshop is equipped with several ways to take advantage of digital duplication and repetition. Let's take a look at how we can manipulate just a few of those to facilitate the design process. First, the simple copy and paste. It works the same way in Photoshop as it does in virtually every other application. Make a selection, copy it to the clipboard, paste it to the new desired area, and you're done. Simple and easy. And here's how it works. Using the marquee tool, we're going to make a selection from the active layer. Once the selection is defined, we Control C to copy and then hit Control V to paste. Photoshop automatically creates a new layer and pastes the contents of the clipboard. If our selection is still defined, it will paste the content right back inside the selection area. You'll notice the bounding box is cleared after the first paste. If our selection is no longer defined, Photoshop will paste it into the center of the canvas. Notice that a brand new layer is created for all additional pastes, each new layer a perfect copy of the original. We can also copy and paste directly from other open Photoshop documents and even from other applications such as MS Paint, or in the case of text, your favorite text editor. This is handy enough and all, but it's not really that impressive from a design standpoint. Now don't get me wrong, the ability to copy and paste is an indispensable tool that you will use throughout the design process. Many projects, especially compositing, would simply not be possible without it. However, that's not where the fun ends. Here are a couple other cool ways you can use duplication and repetition in your work. Photoshop can not only copy and paste content, but it can also copy, paste, and repeat transforms. The ability to do this is not only a huge time saver, but manipulated properly can create some impressive designs. Here's an example. Let's suppose you need to create a row of vertical lines extending from top to bottom of the canvas, equally spaced from the left to right. You start off by grabbing the marquee tool, or shape tool if you prefer vectors. You define your selection and then you fill it. Next, you're going to want to duplicate that line, and it can be done in several ways. You can right-click on the layer and duplicate. You can hold down the Alt key and drag up or down on the layer. You can hold down the Alt key and drag directly on the active shape in the canvas, or you can select the shape and use the copy-paste method to duplicate it. All these methods work equally well for creating copies. Every single one of these copies is picture perfect. However, there is a problem. Now that we've created our copies, we have to undergo the arduous task of aligning each layer so that they are all evenly spaced across the canvas. This means setting up guides or defining grids or using the ruler tool or some other method of measuring. Wouldn't it be so much easier if we could just say to the clipboard, hey, while you're making all those great copies, why don't you go ahead and space them out too? Well, guess what? We can do exactly that. Here's how. With the Move tool selected, enter Free Transform mode by pressing Ctrl T. While in Free Transform mode, move your stripe to where you would like the duplicate to be, like so. Once you're happy, hit Enter or click the check to commit the change. Hold down Ctrl, Alt, and Shift all at the same time. While holding those, press the T key. The clipboard copied not only the content, but the most recent transform, which was to be moved a small amount to the right. Without releasing the modifiers, continue to hit the T key until you have the amount of stripes required. Pretty cool. You may have noticed that each time you press the T key, a new layer was created. That's fine if that's what you want, but what if you'd prefer all elements were on the same layer? The process is somewhat similar, but with one major difference. Before, we transformed the layer. This time, we're going to transform a selection. The end result will be the same, except that each new instance will remain on the same layer as the original, like so. While holding Control, click here on the layer icon to select the entire element. With the marquee tool active, right-click on the selection, or open the selection menu at the top and take a quick look at the menu choices. Towards the middle of the menu, you see Free Transform and Transform Selection. Choose Free Transform. You'll notice that we now have transform controls just as before. Go ahead and move the stripe just like we did previously. Press Enter or click the check to commit the change. Now, while holding Control-Alt-Shift, hit the T key. See what happened? Just like before, our stripe is not only duplicated but replicated, including the movement. The only difference is now the new stripe remains on the same layer as the original, and the selection box is now fixed to the newest stripe. Even cooler, right? There's one important thing to take note of. Duplicating the layers will allow you to extend those duplications off the canvas. Using the selection method, however, will not. It's not a huge deal, but something you should be aware of as you're deciding which method to use. Another thing to keep in mind, this method also works great on shape layers as well. Like so, create a new shape, right-click and choose Free Transform. Move the shape to the location that you want the copy to appear. Press Enter or click the check to commit the change, and then while holding Control, Alt, and Shift, press T the desired number of times. Now I know what you're thinking. I see how this can save me a little bit of time, but when do we get to the cool part? Well, good question, and here's your answer. Here's something really cool that you can do with the power of repetition. I have a layer here with a predefined layer style already installed. With the elliptical marquee tool, we draw a simple circle in the center of the canvas. Then, right-click the circle and choose Stroke. Set the size to 10, color to white, and click OK. Now with the selection still active, right-click and choose Free Transform. Let's offset the pivot point a bit, and while holding the Shift key to lock the rotation to increments, rotate it by 1 increment. Hit Enter or click OK, and while holding Control-Alt-Shift, press the T key a few times and voila! Or we can go at it another way. Starting with the same circular marquee and the same stroke pattern, we right-click and this time choose Transform Selection. What this does is move the selection area independently of the selected object. Just like before, offset the pivot and while holding Shift, rotate by 1 increment. Next, invert the selection by using the menu or by using the keyboard shortcut Shift-Control+I and press Delete. This gives us sort of an ellipse looking shape. Next, invert the selection again with Shift-Control+I so that it's now back to the way it was originally. Once that's done, we can use the Control-Alt-Shift+T replication method to create this. Was that cool or what? It works because even though the first time we were only transforming the selection, the transformation is still copied to the clipboard, and when we use the Control-Alt-Shift-T shortcut to effect the duplication, it's being applied as a free transform, which causes the object selected to be replicated per the selection transform. One more thing, when we say that transformations can be replicated, we mean all transformations, not just orientation. Distortions and resizing can be replicated as well. For example, with the circle selected, hit Ctrl-T to go into free transform mode. While holding down the Shift and Alt keys, increase the size of the circle slightly. Hit Enter or click the check to commit the change. Once again, while holding down Control, Alt, and Shift, hit the T key to replicate the circle, including the increase in size. To repeat a distortion, go back into free transform mode with Control-T. While holding Control, grab and move the upper right transform up slightly. Hit Enter or click the check to commit the change. Again, hold down Control, Alt, and Shift while pressing T. One thing to note while using this method, when repeating a distortion or a resizing, be conscious of your canvas size. If you repeat the change too many times, you'll eventually get an out of range error. And that's going to do it for today's tutorial. Go out and have some fun with that, and by all means feel free to share your designs with us. We love seeing what people come up with when they combine their own design ideas with our techniques. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.